Yo, what's going on, guys? How's it going? It's Tyler here, and today I'm bringing you a brand new video. Now, today's video is going to be somewhat different, but you guys have seen one like it before. Today is going to be a book review, and today we are doing a little overview review type little breakdown of Stephen King's Fairy Tale. A novel. It's a novel, and it was phenomenal. It was, well, I wouldn't say phenomenal. I'm not going to put a label on it like that just yet. I will leave it up to you guys, but the one thing I can say that made me fall in love with this book is the cover. The very first reason why I bought this was just the look of the cover. I absolutely love the blue. I love the gold accents. I love the way the well is looking like an eye, looking like some sort of like a dragon's eye of some sort with Mr. Charlie, the main character, and our nice little doggy there overlooking the well. It's a great feeling for myself. As an artist, I really enjoyed this cover, which was one of the reasons why I purchased it. Now, of course, we have the side view of it, which is another big thing for me, displaying it on your bookcase, and it looks phenomenal as well. Of course, we have our nice little breakdown, but it's a very beautiful book, just the craftsmanship of it. But besides that, I did want to go over it. Now, again, this is a novel, and I can't base it off of King books per se. I can't just say, hey, this one rated from all the other King books, because I have to be honest with you. I have only, from front to back, cover to cover, read only 2 King books, which is this one, Fairy Tale, and I read The Shining. The Shining is my all-time favorite. The movie itself, just the soundtrack itself, it's one of my favorite, well, it's my favorite movie soundtrack of all time. The way that it captivates every single emotion that it's going for, just a single ting, just a single chime is there to represent some sort of emotional pull. It's trying to trigger something. It's trying to engage with you, just the sounds. And so that movie alone is just beautiful to me. It's beautiful. Not the scary parts of it, the murderous parts of it, just the schizophrenic sides of it, the cabin fever, but the sides of it, of the craftsmanship within the directing, within the movie production itself, not necessarily the story. Now, The Shining, the book, hands down, I will sit down and read it again. Like, if I'm sitting down and reading a story, that is such a good story. Such a good story. But today we're talking about Fairy Tale by Stephen King. It is a novel, and it goes over our nice little main character, Charlie. I'm not really going, I can throw it out here in the middle, or just in the middle here, that could be spoilers. I'm not necessarily going to spoil things, but the way that I explain things could walk the lines of spoilers, so I will throw a disclaimer there before, but the book has been out for a fairly good time now, so I did want to go ahead and just review it honestly and openly. I am going to prop it up back here next to my air fryer on my stove. Maybe you guys can see it throughout the video, but no, so mainly, I got the book because, one, the title Fairy Tale, but also Stephen King writing a book called Fairy Tale. I'm very intrigued. Now, coming from my past, Bridge to Terabithia, Spiderwick Chronicles, all of these like fantasy-driven stories, Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, The Chronicles of Narnia, all of those, just these very highly fantasy-driven stories and books and everything. And when I was growing up, Pirates of the Caribbean, all of these things were just peaking in I guess you could say, in like the theaters, the cinema style entertainment. And so all of these things were peaking at the time. Aragon, Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, all of these things were at like an all-time high with me growing up. So very fantasy driven within the story. So I was very intrigued with this, with King coming from, more of like a horror background. So I was like, him throwing in a little bit of fairy tale, I'm a little bit curious. So jumping into the book was very interesting. It goes right in. It's kind of like your normal, just kind of laid back town type vibe. Nothing really too exciting goes on within the town. Of course, it picks up with Charlie Reed. He is your main character, and he ends up discovering a friend. Really, now Charlie's kind of like your loner kid, whatnot. So he tends to himself, goes home to his dad. I found it very interesting. They mentioned LSU in the book itself, and King, me and my you guys know Larkeisha. Me and Larkeisha had discussed King all the time. We are a very big fan of his writing. We're a very big fan of The Shining, and we did analyze that movie together. So that was pretty interesting. So when I came into this book and it started mentioning LSU, well, that's mine and his favorite team. So it was just very full circle. I was like, I'm reading a King book. We got into him like together, and like now I'm reading a book and it's referencing, our favorite team. I found that very interesting. So, but yeah, Charlie lives with his dad, and they're both kind of loners, whatnot. So he ends up running across Mr. Bowditch, and Mr. Bowditch is an older gentleman. He tends to himself. Nobody really pays attention to him. He's kind of like the get off my lawn type of guy. He's got his house on the hill, fenced in. Nobody really pays him any mind, and he very rarely seen and whatnot. And he's very old, of course, and he's got some people around that kind of looking at him sideways. Well, it turns out along the lines, Mr. Bowditch ends up falling off of a ladder and hurting himself, and Charlie was, right there to be able to witness everything. But through that, he then kind of becomes his caretaker. So as Charlie's his caretaker, he ends up discovering some things. He finds out Mr. Bowditch has some secrets, and they're not skeletons in his closet. They're a lot more valuable than skeletons. So Charlie was like, okay, so something's going on with Mr. Bowditch out here. He's a little bit of slanger. So at this point in time, Mr. Bowditch is getting him to do chores. He's getting him to do some errands, and one of the errands is going to a jeweler. And Mr. Bowditch is trading. This is how he buys everything. Is his gold. He's got a bucket full of gold. And so Charlie trades it, makes the money, whatever. But Charlie's real nervous about all this, right? As he rightfully should be. But yeah, he ends up venturing off. He ends up going into the shed of Mr. Bowditch's backyard. There's a shed. And within there is the well. That is the well that is on the cover of the book, and it is in the shed of Mr. Bowditch's backyard. And he ends up venturing down that within all of the story and whatnot, putting things together. Again, I'm trying not to spoil it, so I'm just dancing around the story, just giving an overview. He goes down the well, and it's pretty much your Narnia type thing. He enters into a whole different world. He goes through some trials to get in there. He almost gets caught, this and that, whatever, but he gets down there finally. And once he's down there, of course, it's like your normal fantasy world. Time is not of the essence. Time is also not the same as reality. So Charlie was kind of aware of this because he already was kind of invested in kind of the fantasy stories and like myself. So he was questioning: is this going to be like? Am I going to go home and Dad's going to be 27 years older and yada yada yada? He was questioning all of this. So already a sense of urgency was in his self. Well, he ends up going down and doing his thing and then going back up to the surface. Everything's cool, right? He was kind of skeptical. Am I going to go back up? Like I said, with time. But everything was normal. Everything was great. He was expecting like a search party to be out for him and everything like that, and it's just no too big of a deal. So he does end up going back down, and this time more of a lengthy time, but this time he realizes what's going on there. So within everything, this world has its own set of problems. Now, the way that it paints it, the way that King paints it, in my mind, the way that I was trailing this entire story was kind of like pathways. Like, he goes down, and of course there's just land that you can just see, hills and greenery and everywhere. But then it starts explaining the environment. So it starts kind of pulling away from that a little bit, and so it becomes a little more barren. And for me, it's in my mind, I imagined like this barren, just nice Greenland, just rolling hills, but not too rolling, but then dirt paths everywhere, leading different ways with little cottages here and there, just your typical fantasy world. But it was just all kind of like a flat, wavy greenery, and then it kind of elevates, and just the broad horizon is the Emerald City, basically. No, so that's basically what the story, or what the fantasy world is. Of course, the big kingdom is like your fire and brimstone. Just it is a very eerie place, and pretty much the fantasy world. There was your king, and then another king, and this king is the evil king, and so there's stories of him like slaying his family to stay king, and this and that, whatever. And basically, Charlie is there, and he can choose. He basically has a choice. Now, one of the big things, the choices here, or one of the phrases here that really stamps in the story is Mr. Bowditch. There was a bit of advice that he had given Charlie that he. I'm not sure if it was in the fantasy world or if he physically told him, but it was on the lines of. I'm not going to, this is not verbatim, this is not the quote for quote, but he basically told him real men make changes regardless of the trials and tribulations or whoever it goes against him. He makes changes within the efforts of positivity, but a coward brings gifts. So a coward will, come to you in a time of need and bring you, food. Okay, filling your belly is not really going to say, bring your dead dog back. But what if this man brought you another dog, right? Obviously that's not everybody's thing. They don't want a new dog after their old one died. But instead of bringing them a gift to make that better, change their environment so that's no longer an issue. If somebody's broke and you just bring them money, okay, you fix that problem, but as soon as they spend that money, they're broke again. You haven't taught them how to make money. So that's basically what that was saying. So that is your great power comes with great responsibility quote within this. That was pretty much how King went about it. So the entire time, Charlie's thinking of these things, thinking of, what path am I going to take? Am I going to bring gifts and be a coward, or am I going to, figure things out? Well, he starts figuring things out. He meets people along the lines. He finds out these people have some flaws. Some people don't have mouths. Some people, they're fading. He's like, these people, they're dying. Like, what's happening? Well, that city over there is thriving. And there's rumors that the king is going to rise again. And when he does, all of these people are going to, they're going to fade. They're going to die. And that's going to be the ending of the kingdom, the pure kingdom. And so basically Charlie's like, I ain't going to let that happen. This is basically what Mr. Bowditch was protecting. This is what Mr. Bowditch is rooting for. All these people here love Mr. Bowditch, but I'm not going to let his legacy die with just that. So Charlie decides to be the hero. So Charlie goes into the city where everybody nope. So it was a journey to get to the city. At nighttime, of course, creatures come out. So there's a little bit of conflicts going on there. He gets to the city with Mr. Bowditch's German Shepherd. It's a nice little I Am Legend type story. And they get in there, and there's giants. There's this giant baby-eating woman in there. And she goes berserk, and they have to figure out how to get rid of her. There's, the whole reason of going in there is, well, to gold, And what it is really the main thing was Mr. Bowditch's dog was getting old and everything, and he was going to go in there and fix the dog, right? He put him on a sundial. There's a sundial that controls like time, and you roll it back, you're turning younger. So Charlie's self is thinking like, I can take his dog that's sick, I can put it on the sundial, make it young again, and Mr. Bowditch can have his dog back, right? What harm? No harm, no foul when it's just a dog. So that was his plan, make Mr. Bowditch's sick dog well again. And in the meantime, also maybe find some gold. But yeah, so he gets into the kingdom. He ends up, doing what he needs to do, but there's the city changes and shifts, so you're in a constant form of like haziness as he's walking through the city because everything's shifting. Then he, of course, he gets arrested, so he's put into prison, and then all the people he meets in there is like craziness. Well, all the people in prison have to put on game shows, Hunger Game shows for the kings and all of that. And so he ends up, seeing, the enemies, the kings, the evil rulers and everything in this Colosseum. He pretty much has to battle people to death, and they end up pretty much in a vortex in a way. Like they end up like way out of they're in like the galaxy. They're in, like, if they got pulled out into the Milky Way on like a platform type thing, and pretty much yeah, they got lifted way up into the sky and have to figure out how to kill them all. The great king coming back, and so there was a great fight, of course, and all these different things. So this was, in my opinion, this story, all of the collective, and I pretty much just gave you from start to finish overview and literally just dance around everything. So you kind of sounds like I'm mad, but I did just explain the entire story. Uh, but no, what it was so, to me, again, I'm not going to say fantastic, because what it was to me was there were collective, like, oh, well, this reminds me of this reminds me of that, so on and so forth. It felt like Stephen King truly did just, okay, I want to write a fantasy book, and did start pulling from, the top fantasies, but also his favorite fantasies, and incorporating them all into kind of like one story of his own, and kind of twisting his own little descriptions of horror and berserkness within the story. I believe he did it well, but it was, and it's very well titled fairy tale, because that gets straight to the point. It was your generic fairy tale, but Stephen King's version. That's really what it was. Your core meat and gravy. This is what a fantasy is. Even the pacing of everything was kind of kept up with just your generic fantasy driven books, or fairy tale driven books. But overall, I did find myself like older Josh Hutcherson type era of acting, Journey to the Center of the Earth, or the World. I think it's Earth. The What was it, Vampire's Assistant? That era right there, right before Hunger Games, I was seeing him. Like, he would have been a great actor for this. Now, I already have that programmed because, again, Vampire's Assistant, but also Bridge to Terabithia and all of this, so it already ties in. But I could see, again, right before Hunger Games, I think I said Chris Hutchinson. I meant Josh Hutcherson. But yeah, Josh Hutcherson within this story right before Hunger Games, he could have killed this as an actor, definitely. But that's kind of like the story that it took for me, was like his acting style. That's so it was overall a very, very good book, but very generic. Now, if you like King, of course, obviously, it's a good story. His descriptions of the horror and the berserk actions and everything like that, just the fighting, combat, and everything. It's a very, very good book within Stephen King's descriptions. Just the way he writes. If you're a fan of the way he writes, it's 100% fantastic, like I said in the beginning. Yes, so I'm not going to give it like a rating like 1 to 10, because I feel like that's just, you can't do that to books. Now, would I read it again? No. It's a one and done for me. There's no reason for me to go back and read it like I just did. I just went through the entire story within a few minutes. So it's easy to remember. Once you read it once, there's nothing really to just, oh, I have to read that again. Now, The Shining, I could read that back, front to back, front to back, front to back, front to back, and just once I get to the end, just be like, man, but the beginning was so good. Let me start the beginning again. This is unfortunately not one of those books, but still very, very fantastic. Again, it's been out for a little bit, so you should be able to get it a little bit cheaper now. There's going to be used copies, of course, so check out Thrift Books. Thrift Books is great. This is not sponsored, but Thrift Books is great if you're a reader. They have all sorts. They even have textbooks, but you can get collectors, you can get autographed versions, you can get all of these, and you can get them new, you can get them used, you can get them in good condition. You can choose the condition you want them in, which varies the price. So it's a very, very good app. It's a very good website. Check out Thrift Books if you must. That is where I did pick this book up again on launch day. They had a deal going that if you picked this up on launch day, you got a free book. So I ended up getting 2 books just for purchasing that. So it's a pretty awesome deal. They do have deals like that going on all the time. So again, check out Thrift Books. But if you guys did enjoy this video, you should definitely hit that like button. You should hit that bell notifications button just so you're notified every single time I do post a video. And if you're an avid reader, go ahead in the comments down below. Let me know what is the latest version or the latest book that you have read and the author, and of course, what drove you to that book. I would love to know. And anyway, guys, I do post every single day. So with that being said, I will see you guys in tomorrow's video. Peace.